her large eyes to perfection. In general, Basile chose to allow the female sex to pass by unobserved. He had nearly become entrapped once, and the passage of time had only shown him how lucky was his escape. He much preferred sport, and whatever games he might get up to with his friends. But something about this English lady caught his attention, likely in the disparity between her queenly air and intelligent eyes, and the stolid bulk and dull expression of her escort. Although she barely glanced at Basile, he had time to appreciate the sweet set of her lips, her aquiline nose, and those soft brown eyes. As the couple entered Storeur on his right, he swivelled to its entrance, wishing to confirm his hunch that they were indeed of the English race. Perhaps he and his friends might stop for a cup of coffee and a viennoiserie of some sort. It had been hours since they'd broken their fast, had it not? As he contemplated proposing it to his friend, a finicky English male voice reached him on the street through the open door of the bakery. "I will have 3 of those pastries with the cream. You may wrap them for us. We will not be dining here." A beat of silence fell, and then, "Je suis désolé, monsieur, mais je ne comprends rien à ce que vous dites." The corner of Basile's lips turned up. Storeur was famous enough to have an English clientele, and the tradeswoman behind the counter likely spoke a little of the language. However, there had been no courtesy of a good day, and unlike the Englishman enlightened enough to speak French in a country of French speakers, this one made no such attempt. "I said," came the voice, a notch louder and more shrill, 3 of those, the cream." "Perhaps," a gentle, womanly voice hinted. "No, Sophie, it's intolerable that they should not speak God's own language. It's those cakes I'm asking for, those ones right there." Basile listened to the tradeswoman repeat her avowal that she understood nothing, and he shook his head, his grin growing broader, as the man repeated his request for the 4th time, in a voice that ill hid his frustration. Basile peered into the shop where he spied the Englishman, red around the gills. To his right, the few patrons at the tables leaned in with whispers and muffled laughter. The pretty Englishwoman stepped forward at last, and Basile managed to catch the low timbre of her words, spoken firmly in nearly perfect French. "Bonjour. Have the goodness to excuse the monsieur. It is not his fault if he is stupid. He would be pleased to take 3 of your babas, if you would be so kind as to wrap them for us." She stepped back, and the tradeswoman smiled at her, and nodded as she set the requested pastries in paper and wrapped them with twine. "Cela fera 21 sous." "The price is 21 sous," the Englishwoman repeated to her compatriot. Basile watched as her mask of English indifference shrouded the interesting show of character he had just been witness to when she spoke French. She couldn't be the man's wife, or that was the greatest piece of audacity he had ever seen. To call him stupid before his face, without his knowledge, and with not so much as a flicker of her eyelids. It made him laugh to think of it. But the man was stupid, if he thought he could endear himself to the French this way. No, it appeared this woman was in need of a rescue from death by boredom at the hands of her tiresome chaperone. Sophie, that was what the English imbecile had called her. "Regarde ça!" Armand's eager voice sounded at his side, and Basile reluctantly pulled his stare away from the charming Anglaise, inside of Storeur's. In the Vicomte's hand was a garnet brooch, with gold sprays springing from its jewelled centre, in all directions, like spindly arms of a starfish. "You spent a half-hour in the shop and contented yourself with 1 brooch. You amaze me. I had been sure you would have purchased half the boutique," Basile said, with a lurking smile as he met Grégoire's gaze. "Well, you see, Apolline and I have only just met," Armand said naively. "I should not wish to scare her off by too grand a gesture." "You're very wise," Grégoire assured him, and held out his elbow for Basile to take, so they might carry on their path down the street. But Basile had already turned back to the object of his interest, and was forced to step aside to allow the Englishman to exit the patisserie. Following him was the charming Englishwoman, whose expression remained obscure. Had one not heard her réplique, one might have imagined her spiritless. On impulse he swept off his hat, extended his leg, and bowed before the woman, who greeted the gesture with a startled glance. Before she could protest, he spoke to her in rapid French.